What is a naked gun? Most weapons I see out in the world don't require clothing. That's why I never really batted an eye when I saw a knife or a pistol that wasn't wearing a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. But a few years ago, when I sat down to watch a comedy film and I saw the title of The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad appear on my screen, I was forever changed. How dare I sit idly by and let our guns be waved around with no clothing? Well, that all stops today, because today, this is The Naked Gun.
You know, I just immediately put myself in the shoes of someone who's never seen this podcast and just clicked on it for the first time. They're like, that was a weird fucking way to open it. I just want to hear a couple guys talk about what they think of this comedy movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think like it captures the energy of what Leslie Nielsen does in this movie, which is deliver extremely nonsense dialogue in a very straight way.
She had a full set of curves and a set of legs you'd like to suck on for a couple days, or whatever he said.
Oh,
well,
man.
guys, well, for those watching on the YouTube channel, you might notice things visually look a little different here. That would be because we're doing this podcast virtually right now. I am across the state. Altaf is on the usual set that we record in. That would be because I moved, about 300 miles away. Not sure how long I'm going to be doing that, but it's a life change, and I'll probably talk a little bit more detail about it, I imagine, next episode, because it's a little more correlated with what's going on.
But hey, Chris, before we get into that, this is, I mean, to your point, this is a really weird episode to start on if you're a first-time listener. There's so many things to set up, but welcome to Movies That Changed Us. I'm Altaf.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're going to be talking about how The Naked Gun changed us.
And if you're, I was like listening to you. I forgot to go.
Right.
And if you like the show and want to support us, we do have a Patreon. If you want to support this dumpster fire, you can go to patreon.com/movies that changed us, where we also do weekly commentary tracks, where we record ourselves watching movies. And we're still going to be doing that just virtually. And this go around, we're going to be doing Blazing Saddles. We're doing a collection of classic Nice Dude movies that we've reacted to a while ago that we're kind of revisiting together. Last week we did Monty Python and the Holy Grail. That one's up now if you want to go check that out. And after this we're going to be recording Blazing Saddles. Yep.
I'm really excited. It's weird because we're going to be recording Blazing Saddles, and that's going to go up soon, and then we're going to be next week we're going to be recording a commentary track to The Naked Gun, this movie.
Yeah, I know. We didn't fully realize it because we put the collection in a poll, and then I pointed it out once it won the poll. I was like, oh, we're doing a podcast on Naked Gun, and then we're commentating on it like right after, and you're like, oh, shit, I didn't know that. I didn't notice that. I know.
Well, it's under Nice Dude Classic, so we couldn't miss it. But, okay, before we get into The Naked Gun, Chris, what piece of art moved you this week?
So, what's funny is I moved going on 2 weeks ago now, and I've been kind of busy with a lot of other, just kind of moving, and I'd started working out recently. I'm doing a couple other things going on, but
you went boxing today.
I did. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
You want to show how your hands are shaking?
Oh yeah. I mean, on camera, I don't know if you can tell, this is for visual people only, but I'm holding my hand out.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see there's a little tremor going on. I'm holding it as centered as I can because I know I'm going to be cropped tightly. But anyway, with that being said, my time has been a little bit limited, but there's two things that I've consumed recently. One of them is the first episode of Yellow Jackets, which is an interesting show. I'm behind on it a lot. I know the second season just finished, but I really liked it. Then the other thing I consumed was a movie that came out in 2016 called The Fundamentals of Caring, starring Paul Rudd, and Selena Gomez is in it too. But yeah, they were both kind of interesting. Which one do you want me to talk about
Chris,
first?
The question wasn't what art you watched this week. It was what art moved you this week.
I know, but that's the closest we're going to get right now.
So you didn't listen
to consumed.
You didn't listen to a song that made you remember, like, oh shit, this is great. I forgot about how good this was.
Not really. I haven't been listening to music or doing a whole lot of that lately, to be completely honest.
Well, I don't want to talk about Fundamentals of Caring because that movie I feel like just disappeared and it's only okay. Let's talk about Yellow Jacket. Let's talk about Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
You asked me.
I thought it was a decent movie. Yeah, I'm just gonna throw out my thoughts. If you want to
talk about it, you can, but you asked me. That's why.
All right. Yellow Jackets. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely interesting. I liked it a lot. I watched the first 2 episodes actually, and I do plan to keep watching it. It's basically it meets Lord of the Flies.
You don't want to talk about Last of Us?
Oh, sure, we can talk about Last of Us. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, that's such an important like show / property to you, right?
Yeah, I forgot about that, actually.
I know you did. It's fine. But, I mean, if you wanted to still talk about Yellow Jackets, complete your thought, though.
I'm fully on board. Like, I was fully hooked on the mystery of everything. I was entertained. It looks fucking great. The soundtrack just carried the load for me. I'm like, the budget was just crazy on that. Because you haven't seen any episode of it, have you?
No. But I know it's a big show. Yeah.
Yeah, the budget, I mean, the soundtrack's pretty fire. But yeah, just that's my abridged thoughts on Yellow Jackets. But yeah, the first episode of Last of Us season 2 came out. I was extremely pumped for it. I'm a big fan. I've beaten the first game probably like a good fucking 8 times or something. And then the second game, I think I've beaten 3 or 4 times.
I do think beating the second game 3 to 4 times is a big achievement with how big that game is.
It's a long game. It's one of those things where I keep hearing controversial things about it, and it makes me rethink how I approach the game. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to play it again. And then I hear another thing, and then I reapproach how I think about it. So sometimes I really like it, and sometimes I really don't like it, and I still don't really have a read on how I feel about it. With that being said, though, yeah, I mean, I thought the first episode was solid of the new season. You know, it does a couple big differences, you know, at least in terms of chronology of stuff happening from the game. But it still very much captured the essence of, you know, what the second game felt like. It very much felt like still the energy of the second game, which is very different from the first one.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I've played both games only once each. I haven't replayed them because I kind of played off your PlayStation, and I'm not a huge gamer, but I definitely played those games. To give some context, I remember early on in our friendship, you were like, you have to play Last of Us. It was like such an important game to you. You showed me, before I even played the first game, you showed me the teaser to the second game. You're like, look how good this teaser is. This is what they're doing here.
I mean, honestly, that teaser trailer, I think that came out in like 2016 or something like that. It came out a while before the actual game released. It's still probably my favorite video game teaser of all time. Maybe even just my favorite teaser of all time. Really?
Wow. So the art that I picked out was something I watched this morning, and I am not gonna lie, I was fucking changed by it and moved by it to the point where I sent you 4 texts about it immediately when I watched it. You don't understand. I've like now seen it today after watching it for the first time this morning.
It was just this morning.
I watched it this morning, and after seeing it this morning, I've now seen it like 9 times, and I'm not exaggerating. I was just kept putting it on. It's the behind the scenes footage of the Chili's baby back ribs recording, like the original recording of them of that jingle, and I was recommended to it by a podcast called The Doughboys, a pretty big like fast food comedy podcast that I listen to, and they were talking about how awesome that behind the scenes footage is. And I watch it, and it's these guys, they're so into the recording. Obviously, the jingle's a classic, like I want my baby back, baby back, baby back. It's obviously classic. But then on top of that, you're seeing these guys record it with so much passion. You cut to the guys on the drum, and he's drumming the shit out of it. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is so fucking awesome that these are like my best friends. Like I want to know everything
no,
about.
I get it.
You know what I mean? Like
100%.
I was genuinely moved by how much passion was put into something like this, you know?
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes to jingles. I mean, you know, I heard something similar about the McDonald's jingle too, like ba da ba ba ba. I'm loving it.
Mm-hmm.
I heard a lot of work and a lot of passion was put into that sort of thing too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting just when you see something that's so short and seems so like kind of trivial, like it's just a commercial for fucking baby back ribs, but you see the amount of love put into something like that and you realize there's a whole group of human beings that work together to make something great, just like anything else. And like art is art.
Art is art. A great way, really well put. But
the first time I heard that jingle was when
The Office.
No. It was a commercial where I think NSYNC did it. I think it was for like it wasn't the original, but I'm
they
pretty
did
sure
a remix of it.
Yeah, NSYNC did their own version of it because they started off singing something where they're like, "I want my baby back," like making it seem like they're singing like a heartbreak song, and then they all look and they're like ribs, and then they break out into the song.
Oh, okay.
That was the first time I ever heard it, and then I heard it again on Austin Powers' "The Spy Who Shagged Me" when Fat Bastard sang about it because he wanted to eat Mini-Me. Just to be clear on the context of that scene.
I forget how much he wants to eat Mini-Me.
Oh yeah, he's like, "You keep your money, and I'll get you a baby."
It has that energy of Rocket always wanting a body part. He's like, "I'll get that arm."
Oh yeah, when he's with the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Is that do you refer to him as the Winter Soldier? You don't call him Bucky?
Right there, I refer to him as Winter Soldier. Yeah, I guess so. It was very subconscious. So.
Okay.
By the way, this chair that I'm in swivels side to side.
Yeah.
And I have to actively try not to swivel.
Oh, sure. No, yeah. I'm sitting in an office chair right now, and it does the same. But the only thing that's stopping me from swiveling is I'm leaning against a table to be close to the mic. Because you have an arm. This is really boring shit, but whatever.
No, but I mean, honestly, between us, it is a little different because when we did the normal setup, we sat in these hard wooden chairs to like fit and frame, and they were very uncomfortable to sit in for a while, and that was the thing you and I bitched about a lot, particularly you more than me, but
oh yeah, I hated
both of us are in like cozier chairs now.
We're just further apart. Well, let's talk about Naked Gun. Chris, how did Naked Gun change you?
Oh man, this is a juicy movie for me. I first watched this movie when I was probably about 9 or 10 years old, and it was on, like back in the day when there was like DirecTV or like Comcast on, that kind of stuff. Us millennials know this era, but it was on, and I think my dad showed it to me, and it was like halfway through. It was like halfway done. Okay. And he was telling me, like, when you first click on that movie without any context, it doesn't look like a comedy for a second. You know what I mean?
No. There's
you wouldn't guess if you were just flipping through channels, you wouldn't think that was a comedy.
100%.
Because it doesn't have like the studio lighting or stuff. I mean, obviously it's made in the 80s, so it's different, but there's still like a tone that it has. It's filmed like a straight noir cop movie. And my dad told me, "Oh, this movie's really funny. You should watch it." And it took me a second. Like I was watching, I was like, "This is funny." And I remember it was during the dinner scene between Leslie Nielsen and Priscilla Presley when she eats the meat off his finger.
Oh, sure. I have 9 more.
I have 9 more.
Yeah.
And then like 9-year-old me was like, "Whoa, this is funny." And I watched the whole thing from there.
Okay, I feel like that's the best way to come across that movie.
Yeah. And so
to see it on TV, not realize immediately that's a comedy, and then the joke hits and you're laughing.
Mm-hmm. And then by the end of it, when I was just dying laughing when they're at the baseball game and they're showing all the highlights of unusual moments that happen between the baseball players and they're bumping into each other. Then like a fucking car comes on the field and then the tiger jumps out. As
a kid, what moment got you the hardest? Do you remember like what was the hardest laugh you had?
It was the safe sex joke that they made.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I had a friend.
I can see that.
Yeah, I had a friend in elementary school who'd also seen The Naked Gun. It was like one other kid. And, this is like a movie that was old for the time when I was a kid, And
yeah.
So like we saw each other and that was a joke. Him and I quoted each other. We were like, want to have safe sex and their full body cover. We didn't even know what condoms were. I was like 9, but it was just funny. The idea of being in a big rubber suit, at least that's what it looked like to me at the time. I guess to really summarize it, it's pretty formative for me still to this day. I mean, this one and Airplane, they tickle my funny bone in a way no other movies do. There's something so unapologetic about the way they're made and the tone they have. Everything I can say has already been said. If you've seen this movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Totally.
But there's a sense of humor that's very near and dear to me and probably near and dear to you, Altaf, probably near and dear to listeners. It's just very special.
Yeah. I mean, I first watched this for our reaction channel. As our audience probably knows, on our Nice Dude Movie Night channel, we did a first time watching to The Naked Gun. I'm about to sneeze.
It's that time of the year.
God damn it.
I'm sorry, man.
Oh, holy shit. That sucks. Okay. Pressing on. we did a first time watching reaction video on the Nice to Movie Night channel to Naked Gun, and I knew it had Leslie Nielsen in it, and I knew it was going to be a comedy, and I knew what kind of comedy it was going to be because of Leslie Nielsen, right? I had seen Airplane, and it still, we'll talk about it later, but it still has the hardest laugh I've ever had in my entire, like, not in my entire life, but on camera at least, the hardest I've ever laughed. Yeah. And it's the, it's the hospital moment of him visiting OJ.
Wait, Frank, your buddy.
And maybe we'll cut to a clip of it here in the podcast, but I was holding my chest and you like tap my shoulder and you say, I'm glad you're enjoying this, man. Just because I don't know what happened. And I think when I think about this movie, I think about the best times of our reaction channel. Like, it was obviously the peak of our audience. It has over 1 million views. We got a lot of our audience from that video, but it was also during a time where you and I were still enjoying making those videos. It was still fun. And it was kind of the start of things for us in terms of like, oh, we can feel this transitioning us into us doing this full time rather than just a hobby, And
yeah, that one is I agree. Yeah, that was pretty formative for our channel.
And so I just I think back to that, to the Holy Grail reaction, and with a lot of fondness. I just remember having such a great time.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that one's your favorite reaction of ours to rewatch? Because I remember you tell me about that one a lot. You're like, you got to rewatch the Naked Gun reaction.
Yeah, I like rewatching that reaction a lot. There's another one that I enjoy, but I can't think of at the top of my head. Oh yeah, I like watching our It's a Wonderful Life reaction, which we've done in a podcast episode on. And then I like watching Naked Gun. Those are my two favorite reaction videos we've done. And it's selfish because I do think it's like the strongest moments from me in our reaction videos are in those. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when you weeping on camera and then also you laughing super hard.
It's like both extremes are in those episodes. So yeah, I don't have like obviously a great like childhood story with this movie like you do, but it just, I think back, it reminds me a lot of like our friendship on camera. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's just, that's what was kind of special for us. And when we were doing videos for Nice Dude Movie Night, was obviously like you and I wanted to make videos that we would watch, but that's why we edited them so much. We wanted to, because like at least I watched more movie reaction videos, and some of them, I'm not going to throw shade anywhere, but some of them are pretty like quickly, cranked out, where it's just one still shot, then the movie on, on screen.
Yeah.
And so we were like, if we're going to do a reaction, let's make it something that you and I would be thoroughly entertained. So that's why we masked and did crop ins and added subtitles. We wanted to make it as like watchable as possible for both of us. But while we did that, we also have like kind of our own time capsule, our own little journal. Like it's like it's a special moment of us sharing this movie and watching it and having fun together. So we get to have both a good video and then also like, a special memory.
It's also something to point out. I remember it was the first time, I think, like my dad's seen a lot of our videos, but it was the first time I think through the phone my dad was talking to me. He's like, I watched your Naked Gun video.
Really?
Well, because and I didn't even know this, but he had seen the movie before. My parents are Indian, so I sometimes don't know how many American movies they watched, especially older ones, right? And my dad was like, Naked Gun's great. That guy, I think he called him as like that old guy. He's always amazing.
Well, okay, so actually that does, I know you mentioned you knew Leslie Nielsen because you saw Airplane. Have you seen him in anything else
since then?
Yeah, or before then, or since then.
Okay, so here's another thing. I think I didn't realize it was him because I was younger and I hadn't seen Airplane yet. But do you remember that Drake Bell satire movie on superheroes called The Superhero Movie?
Yeah, and he was like the Uncle Ben in that movie.
Right, so I had seen him in that, but didn't really put two and two together of like, that's Leslie Nielsen.
Gotcha.
And that it's a big deal that they got him in this movie. Like, I didn't really put that together,
Yeah, and he was in Scary Movie 3 and 4, which is kind of cool.
Right. So like, I had definitely seen him. I guess I just didn't really like recognize him, as Leslie Nielsen.
Yeah, makes sense.
Before we get into specifics about the movie, I think we should point out that as a time of recording this, 2 weeks ago, we got the teaser to Liam Neeson's Naked Gun movie that's coming out this August. What was your first reaction to that teaser?
Well, okay, so I heard about this movie for a while, probably over a year or something. I knew it was like an ongoing thing that Seth MacFarlane wanted to do, a new Naked Gun movie.
I might be wrong, but we probably talked about it at the end of one of our Naked Gun reactions. I don't know if it was the 2.5 or first one, but yeah.
Oh, maybe so. Yeah, that checks out. But so I knew it was potentially, like happening. I didn't know if it was going to be in development hell or what, but I knew that was like a thing people were talking about. And I knew Liam Neeson was was in talks to play as him. So by the time I saw that trailer, though, I fucking clicked on it immediately because I was like, yo, this is happening now.
Yeah.
And I was thoroughly happy with it. I think the only thing that made me a little nervous was like the modern hip hoppy music. Maybe it's just me. I just have an aversion to that stuff in comedies, but I think that's just a personal preference thing. I think I was hoping for like that heroic music that normally plays for Naked Gun.
Yeah. I want to give it the benefit of the doubt of like maybe in the movie it'll work better. Or
it might just be a marketing thing.
Or it might be a marketing thing. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to use the, like, Naked Gun music that's in the first movies or whatever. Yeah, I just think it gave me hope. Like, I was shocked by how much I liked the teaser, especially that ending joke of them all looking at their dads and then it cutting to the black officers looking at OJ and who then looks at the camera.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like, all of it felt like something that I've been itching for, and I know it's another legacy sequel, and I could be cynical about it, and I usually am. But they just knocked that teaser out of the park, and that joke is so funny, and I was just like, seeing the beauty in the text that is only in theaters. That it's not just fucking being thrown on Peacock.
I know, dude. Imagine how sad it would be if it was just on Amazon or something, if it was like just a Prime original movie.
And it would be depressing. And so, like, obviously, I am, like, I want it to be good. And I want it to, like, but also I just feel like people will be excited to go see this because this is corny to say, but, like, man, in a time that's as scary as this, we fucking need movies like this. Mm-hmm. And maybe we can transition here and talk about this movie, but that's kind of what stood out to me is that.
Can I jump in one more thing before you transition?
God, it was going to be such a beautiful transition too.
Oh, I'm sorry, man, but I want to have thoughts.
I guess this is a podcast and you got to give me your thoughts.
No, I was just going to say, like, I would not support the existence of a new Naked Gun movie if it wasn't Liam Neeson. He is the only person on planet Earth that I would trust to play Frank Drebin.
Yeah, he's the only person that you can see pull it off, yeah.
Yeah, just because, I saw like an Instagram reel of people, someone being like, so a new Naked Gun movie's coming out, someone's kind of giving their commentary on it, but they said like Liam Neeson, who normally dies and does really serious movies, he played, he's in Schindler's List, playing this type of ridiculous character, and I'm like, you guys know Leslie Nielsen was also a drama actor.
Wait, did he say this type of ridiculous character in Schindler's List?
Something along those lines, yeah.
He called his character in Schindler's List a ridiculous character?
He was saying it was saying Liam Neeson playing a ridiculous character like Frank Drebin.
Oh, okay.
It was just funny, though, seeing that conversation just because I'm like, Leslie Nielsen was also a very heavily dramatic actor before he got the role in Airplane. And you know what I mean? That's what made them, like, their deadpan delivery so fucking funny.
So, to be fair, Leslie Nielsen became famous because of his comedies. Liam Neeson became famous by doing dramatic acting. And being a dramatic actor and then becoming an action hero, becoming the Taken guy. And lately he's been doing a lot of, red box movies and whatever, right? But I will say, on the positive side, we've seen that cameo that he did on Ted, and we know he can be funny. You know what I mean?
Atlanta.
Yeah. Jesus, that episode in Atlanta is wild. People should
Sorry, but that is a little spoily for Atlanta, but it's worth it though.
I mean, it's been a couple years since that show came out. I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's safe. Yeah.
Okay,
you want to try that transition again?
Oh, What transition?
When you were saying like I was about to transition to the next, you're just like,
oh yeah, this is what the transition was going to be. I was going to talk about how in times like this we need fucking dumb movies like this, you know what I mean? But dumb movies that are not just like, oh, it's so bad it's good, you know what I mean? This movie's hot trash. Dumb movies as in, this is so silly. And maybe silly is a better word to use. Silly movies that have a lot of love put into them. And that's what this movie is. That's like the defining factor of this movie, is that it's so silly, but there's so much like effort and there's actual like comedic set pieces, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think I always like to phrase it as like movies that don't give a fuck, you know?
Yeah.
And that comes in all forms, you know, or like we've been newly saying recently of just like, it feels like it was made by people that wanted to make it. In that sort of love comes in all genres, in all forms. And in comedy, this one knocks it out of the park. You know, I think like one of my favorite elements of this movie, rewatching it again, that I've noticed is how much it's okay with taking its time between the bits. You know what I mean? It'll like right when, you know, like the part when, right when the movie really kicks in, after the opening credits and that whole goofy part, when it's OJ listening in on them, you know, when they're talking about the heroin, there was no joke for like a while.
Yeah, for a second it plays like Usual Suspects or something.
Exactly, like when they're saying like, you know, oh, for $80 million, you know, this heroin, nah.
Yeah.
And you see the boat, and then you see him creeping up on the ship, and he's looking around, making sure he's not caught. And then the joke kicks in when he kicks the door in, and his whole foot goes through the door.
I'm so sorry, my Zoom cut it out, but for some reason we can keep this in.
Yeah.
For some reason, I had an alarm for 7:10 p.m. What the fuck was that?
Huh.
Okay. Yeah, but you were saying how that's when the joke finally kicks in, but there's so much setup that's done beforehand.
Exactly. Like it doesn't. There are a lot of comedy movies that are, you know, and I think this is like one of the wrong lessons learned from like the Judd Apatow era and like the improv stuff, is like they constantly rely on the actors like just throwing everything they got at the movie, like constantly attempting to be funny instead of actually like knowing how to build a bit.
Yeah, this movie is a movie, you know?
Yeah.
It's like it has an extremely razor thin plot, but it does have a plot. And it knows that it has to walk an audience through the plot, but it also knows that it's important to kind of tease them a little bit. Like, for instance, when you're besides like you, who was a kid that just came across this movie and didn't know it was a comedy, most people who had seen this movie in theaters, right, knew it was going to be a comedy. Especially since the show Police Squad or whatever, right?
Yeah, and Airplane too.
Exactly. It's Leslie Nielsen, so people know. So people know that there's going to be a joke coming, but it becomes better the longer you're waiting for it. You know, especially seeing OJ be a cop. I mean, now OJ being in it is a completely different context. But back then, you're like, oh my God, they got OJ to be in it, the football player. This is 100% going to end up being silly.
I know. And the fact that it's such, I think we talked about it in the actual reaction, but it weirdly, like, of all ways to put OJ in a movie back in the day and
this
have it
ages
age
so well.
I know, it's just him getting the shit beat out of him the whole time.
It ages, this franchise, the way they use OJ, I mean, we haven't seen the third one, but the first two movies, the way they use OJ ages so well because he's not the hero. He just gets the shit beat out of him. And I'm like, yeah, I guess if we were to look back at an OJ, I just want to see him fall downstairs. I want to see him like get the shit beat out of him, you know?
I know, have his face sat on by Leslie Nielsen.
Okay, so let's talk about the opening Beirut sequence.
Every time I watch that scene, like when it does that opening kind of sweeping establishing shot, because that reaction we did is like burned into my brain because we watched it so many times and we were going over the different edits. I just see the mask of you coming in or whatever the cutaway is being like, we open in Beirut.
Yeah.
like it's just in there. I can't watch it on my own without thinking of your fucking voice. Like,
I will say
acknowledging what happens in it.
Okay, in Beirut, we're starting in Beirut. I just didn't expect this.
There was definitely certain scenes in this movie, especially the opening like credits, like with a car going through. It was weird watching it without hearing our laughter.
Yeah, or hearing you being like, "Why ride a roller coaster?"
I thought it's a roller coaster.
My favorite though is when they're formulating. Bless you. is when they're formulating their plan.
Yeah.
And you know how Leslie Nielsen's like disguised as like a servant pouring them tea?
Oh, yeah.
My favorite is how the buildup, how you see his hands shaking.
Like he can't handle it.
He's so mad of how they're talking about his country.
He's like, they're talking about terrorism. I must stop this.
Yeah, and then he just burns his hand, punches him in the face.
What is it about Leslie Nielsen, you think, that
I think
works? Because, like, part of me, I'm just going to challenge something. Do you think he's only as good as his script? In the sense of, could anyone do this kind of role? But if they have the dialogue that he gets, because there's a challenge you can put forth, not one that I agree with, but he's just playing it straight.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in not so good movies. I mean, Superhero Movie is a good example. That's not a great movie, but he's good in it, I would say. He knows the style of humor that it has. I think there is a difference. And I actually, you know what's funny? I'm going to lean into Superhero Movie a little bit more, is that Drake Bell, God love him as an actor. You know, I love Drake and Josh and all that stuff growing up. But he is not right for that type of role when he was supposed to be the Peter Parker character. There's something in his delivery that just doesn't land the same way.
Yeah.
You know? And so I do think there is something very special. And I think Leslie Nielsen has like kind of, he feels like the grandpa you never had. You know what I mean? He feels like the guy, like when you go up to him, he's going to ask you to pull his finger and it's going to be a funny fart.
But that's his like off-screen persona when he's in talk shows, but not like in
always,
his movies.
Though. But I'm just saying, even on screen though, I do feel like that, you know? Yeah, he plays it straight, but he always has that range.
Yeah.
He always has those moments, you know, those inklings, like when after the love montage scene, you know, something tells me I'm into something good. At the end of that scene, when they kiss and walk away, he gives this little cheeky smile and kind of does like a couple finger guns and walks away and like clicks his heels together.
God, the last finger gun that he does before he walks away is so fucking funny.
But I'm like, that's I feel like only he can do that type of moment. You know what I'm saying? He has this kind of cheekiness about him under the surface. Like he's like in on the joke, but he's not at the same time.
Yeah, no. I agree. He also has these great eyes. Like, whenever he fucks up, his eyes go so wide, like when he accidentally drops the pen in the fish tank, or, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. He has, but he knows when to do it. That's what I think is, you know, special about him, is that he follows the script, but he knows when to do those extreme moments, you know, so he's not just trying to, like, steal the attention the whole time.
Is there a movie star, maybe a comedy star, but they don't really make studio comedies anymore? But let's just say, let's put ourselves in the mindset of early 2000s when we were growing up watching comedies in theaters. Is there someone that would show up in a movie that immediately like brings you that level of joy that Leslie Nielsen does, that when he shows up, you're just like, oh, this is going to be funny. This is going to be a good time, you know?
Ah, man, nowadays that's hard to, because I was going to say it used to be Will Ferrell for me.
I was going to say the same thing. Yes.
Which I would even compare, like, you know, when it comes to like, you know, movie doofuses. I don't know what else to call them, with like famous movie characters that are just iconic doofuses, like Clark Griswold, Austin Powers. I would, you know, Frank Drebin, and then also like Ron Burgundy. I think those are like kind of the iconic, like, like iconic comedy doofuses.
100%. Especially with like Ron Burgundy. I think what Will Ferrell does really well is in his best roles, he takes himself very seriously. Which is like Leslie Nielsen. That's what he does. It's not a 1-to-1, but it is very like similar, like with the goal of just like, no, Ron Burgundy, the way Will Ferrell plays it is Will Ferrell, the actor, plays that role of Ron Burgundy as if this is an actual anchorman that's having an identity crisis.
Yeah.
He doesn't play it like a comedian would, which is, you know, I guess that's kind of what we're missing out on right now, is like an actual comedic actor, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's why I'm looking forward to Liam Neeson playing as Frank Drebin, because he is a very much like a straight actor. I do, you know, the cheekiness that I brought up earlier with Frank Drebin, that kind of like the little coy smile and the playfulness that he has. I'm curious if he's going to be able to bring that aspect too.
There's this, you're right. In a lot of like scenes in this movie, there's this kind of like twinkle in Leslie Nielsen's eye. Like even though he's delivering it straight, he kind of knows this is really funny.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it feels like I said, there's like a magnetism that he has on screen.
Yeah, like that. I'll give a perfect example. of something that like is the thing you're talking about. You're like, I wonder if Liam Neeson will be able to bring this. Is the moment where what's her character's name? I have it written right here. Jane Spencer, Priscilla Presley's character.
Mm-hmm.
How towards like the end of the second act where she's at the police station and you're just like, I'm the luckiest woman in the world. And it cuts back to Leslie Nielsen smiling very earnestly, being like, so am I.
I know.
And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing that Leslie Nielsen really brings. You have a great point. It's that thing in his eyes where he like knows this is pretty silly.
My favorite that just reminds me when Frank walks in and the villain, I forget the villain's name, when he realizes that Frank Drebin's still alive.
Vincent Ludwig.
Like, Drebin. And then she's like, Frank, and he's like, you're both right.
I have a gun. I know that.
Yeah.
I love like Leslie Nielsen's tiny like side glances when someone calls him out. Like for instance, when his sidekick his character's name is Captain Ed Hawken, played by George Kennedy, is telling Frank Drebin, he's like, Frank, when he said I love you, he was talking about the name of the boat. And Frank just looks at him and is like, I know that now. Like he's like, okay, stop it. Like,
I know when OJ's like, drugs, Frank. He's like, someone get some drugs. And no, heroin. And he's like, that's a pretty tall order. Nordberg.
You might have to give me a day or two. Yeah.
He was down to give him the heroin.
Yeah,
he was like, just give me a second.
He's going to figure it out for him. Yeah. He also, like, Leslie Nielsen has this, like, he is a handsome man. You know what I mean? He is a good-looking guy. So in a world, you can tell why, like, women in this world of Naked Gun are into him, right? But the way they talk about him is as if he's James Bond. He's like, Frank is this complicated character, you know?
I know, he's a damaged man. Well, they're giving him, like, the classic, like, noir, hard-boiled detective tropes,
Yeah, I forget that from, like, the first 15 minutes of the movie, you find out that his woman left him. He'll never find anyone that will love him the same way again. Everywhere he looks, something reminds me of her, And then he sees those two boobs.
Yeah, I know. Or when all the press is there with their microphones out, and he's like, all of this, none of this matters if she's not around for it. I know what you all want to hear. And he starts speaking to the mic like, Frank, Weird Al Yankovic is here.
Something we never pointed out in the reaction, but it's haunted me because we never like saw it because there's so many jokes being thrown at you, is when he's walking up to that podium in the background, you see from the undercarriage of the plane carry-on luggage that's just being thrown to the ground. Like no one's there for it. But it's so like in the back.
Oh, I'd also like to put to rest, because we got a lot of shit in the comments for this. I'm sorry we cut out the nice beaver joke. I just wanted to I think listeners who watch the reaction deserve some closure. We laughed at the joke and everything in the final cut. Like it was there. I think we were just trimming it down for brevity, for just to kind of just keep the video a little more entertaining. We didn't think anything significant of it. That's the thing about reactions in general sometimes. Like you and I are not aware of the near and dear aspects that people hold for certain movies, because they, can't wait for certain scenes, or certain scenes are very burned into their brains. And we just weren't prepared for that. We thought people wouldn't miss that moment. And then just the comments just demolished us for cutting out the nice beaver joke.
I appreciate you finally closing the loop on that. Something that I think you and I always appreciate in these types of movies is using cinema to be silly. Like the kind of the things that we were talking about earlier in this episode of just like, like putting love into something that is absolute nonsense. And we talked, I want to talk a little bit more about the love montage, but like, let's start with the practicing safe sex joke. 'Cause she says, I like to practice safe sex. And he says, so do I. And if people watch our reaction, they can see this moment. But then it cuts to both of them wearing full body condoms. And I was in shock. Like you could see it in the reaction where I'm just basically, I keep saying, no fucking way. That's insane. They built full body condoms. And not only that, the camera keeps moving back and you see they built like big ass like wrapper, like packaging for those condoms.
That's... What the fuck? The prop department had to make that. What the damn rappers?
I was excited for you to see that joke.
I want that so bad for movies today. I want them to put so much work in. And I'm not saying the budget has to be bloated, right? This movie cost $12 million to make. But there needs to be a level of like, I must know that you put in so much work for something this dumb.
Yeah, I know. You really don't see that anymore. And I maybe, I want to say like, oh, well, this movie was like kind of a lightning in a bottle. We shouldn't hold every comedy to this sort of standard. But there's a lot of comedies, even that weren't like critically acclaimed greatest comedies ever made, that still put a lot of work visually into it. I mean, Not Another Teen Movie is an example of that. That movie's not like this. I mean, I know you love that movie, and I enjoy that movie a lot too. But I
love that movie.
But you know what I'm saying? It's not looked at with the same fondness as something like Naked Gun or Airplane, or like these really upper echelon comedies. But there's still a lot of bits in Not Another Teen Movie where you can't help but admire the craftsmanship put into it.
No, to be honest with you, man, you like locked in on something that is really important to me, which is in our YouTube careers, and I'm including the movie reactions in this obviously because that was the biggest part of our YouTube careers, and that's why probably a lot of our audience is here. I think the thing that I'm most proud of is us propping up stuff like this. We always, in all of our Mel Brooks reactions, in our Naked Gun reactions, our Monty Python reactions, I think it was something we always talked about in those videos. We always propped up shit like that. We looked at those movies as if they were like Citizen Kane. We're just like, because you and I would look at them being like, the fucking amount of work Mel Brooks put into this musical sequence for History of the World, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like Mel Brooks is obviously super respected in the film community, but
sorry, I think just took me out. I just remember the Inquisition.
Oh, I love it.
I'm trying not to get totally sidetracked from it, but goddamn, what a funny bit. Anyway, though, I know what you're saying.
But I think like those kind of, aside from Mel Brooks is talked about with a lot of reverence, but I feel like I think amongst cinephiles we tend to kind of ignore these movies because we put them in a category of comedy. But if we want comedies like this to come back, we got to look at them with the same level of reverence that we look at Pulp Fiction. You know what I mean? Because it takes so much craft to pull this kind of shit off and actually make it funny. Like, comedy might be the hardest genre to pull off.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, I think it goes for pretty much any drama or any genre, including drama, including horror too. You know how there's like a whole community of horror fans that don't watch objectively amazing horror movies, but still know all the details of the costume designer and, Tom Savini did this, gag for that. You know what I'm saying? And
but
I think comedies are.
But I feel like horror, now is more like in the cinephile community, people really respect horror. You know what I mean?
That's true. I'm just talking about, but there's also I'm talking about like people who enjoy like the B horror movies. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who still know like a lot of the niche details of who did this, who played it. There's a lot of like cult actors that play in, B movies that people follow and stuff. That's really what I'm getting at.
Is your point saying that like we should be like, along with like the best comedies of all time, we should also be putting respect into satire movies like this? Like, I wouldn't say Naked Gun is a B movie. But
no, not at all. Yeah, I'm talking. I guess I was making the comparison to like what I was just saying before is stuff like Not Another Teen Movie or certain movies in that caliber. Just because like we don't get a lot of that. We don't get a lot of attempts at movies in that genre anymore because everything's just made into this clean studio lighting. Let's just make the characters say mildly funny dialogue and predictable jokes.
Yeah, I know. It's a shame. It's a shame, but like, it's the reason why I love Adam Sandler so much. And then like, it's the reason why I always talk about him with like, I'm like, it's easy to like brush off the Sandman, but the Sandman's doing work. What's another set piece that you really want to talk about? Sorry. I started the condom conversation to talk about the love montage because that's what it was leading into. Sorry.
Okay, cool.
Probably on this rewatch, because I hadn't seen this movie since we did the reaction. And on a rewatch, the hardest I laughed was the love montage, because I think when we were filming the reaction, I didn't catch all of it because we were talking over it, whatever. But this time I got to fully process The joke that really fucking killed me, and I watched this at 11 p.m. last night, but the joke that really killed me is them slow-mo running on the beach and then accidentally running into another couple that was slow-mo running on the beach.
When they clothesline them. And of course, obviously, like, you know, when they're laughing their asses off coming out of Platoon.
Yeah.
And then, like, them with, like, squirting each other in the face with ketchup and mustard. What's special about these movies, and I think overall with the satire / spoof / parody genre in general, is there's kind of like an inherent value, at least when it's done well. There is like a genuine value that you can get out of it just as much as any other genre, just because, like, I think the cool thing about, you know, parody movies is it's basically everyone acknowledging that we understand the language of movies and all the tropes and all the beats, and we're all kind of celebrating that together in a weird way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't appreciate this movie in the same way if you didn't know how, like, the beats of typical cop movies.
Right. Which is maybe why parody movies aren't made that often anymore, just because we've done all of them. But
that's true too.
Yeah. So there's a difference, right? I obviously don't like. I hate movies that are trying to be real movies, but then also are too afraid of it, so they constantly have to make like winking jokes at the audience. Like, yeah. I hate bullshit like that. Like, that's why
I emphasize when I said when it's done well.
Yeah, and by when it's done well, I think for me what that means, and if you disagree, you can say so, but like for me, it's not about being like, listen, we know you've seen every movie, so we're just gonna point that out. For me, it's about just like, no, we're gonna treat this like a noir movie, but we're also like going to make fun of it. But the characters don't know that. You know what I mean? The characters think they're in a real movie. And I think that's the key. I think nowadays we flipped it, where the characters also know they're in a movie. Like The Rock will make jokes, or like The Fall Guy. The Fall Guy is an amazing romantic action comedy. Like, it's really fun. But then there's this moment where Ryan Gosling is giving this like really heartfelt and actually sincere monologue about why he's scared to fall in love. And he's like, he's a stuntman in that movie, and he's talking about, he's like, you know, stuntmen are not scared of falling out of buildings, but as a stuntman, I am scared of admitting that I love you. Like, he says something along the lines of that. And that's like oh my God, that's like, you nailed it. What a great piece of dialogue that summarizes what the movie is. He says that emotional dialogue, and Emily Blunt's character feels it over the phone. And then he says, oh my God, it's like, I can't believe I just said that, or something like that. He immediately undercuts it with being like, wow, it sounded like it was from a movie or something.
I hate when movies do that.
Dude, yeah. I was about to throw my phone against the screen. I was so pissed off because I'm like, why? Naked Gun, I'm not going in expecting this, like, I wanted a serious noir movie. But I think the reason it works is because the characters don't know they're in a movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, the good example, you know, is when he gives that speech to Priscilla Presley when she's like, I must kill Frank Drebin, and he gives that whole thing of like, I notice all these things, you know, the dew on fresh grown grass, and, you know, whatever he says, stoplights. Like, the dialogue is funny at the same time, and the comedy is also in the background. Like, when you see the Jumbotron and all the people watching, and like all the baseball players fighting, and they stop fighting to like watch it happen.
Yeah, the rabbi and the Muslim hugging.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well, like, this isn't like so much of like a sincere love scene or whatever, but a part when I talk about, like, you know, playing on the tropes well, is like when he's doing that narration about like he still has so many questions, like, if, you know, what's the name of the villain again? Remind me.
I got Vincent Ludwig.
He's like, you know, if there's no record of the I love you ship, you know, who knows about it? And why doesn't Ludwig know? And you know how it's like following his feet, walking through like the puddles, and you see the neon lights and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then he goes off into like grassy territory that you hear like animal noises and shit. And he's like, and where the hell was I? Like, that's a good example of like parody. You know what I'm saying? It's like we've all seen those scenes, you know, we've all seen Chinatown and those types of movies.
Yeah, it's stuff like that where I'm like, what was the thought process in writing that joke? Where they're like, okay, we need that classic noir scene of them walking through the streets thinking, oh, what if we did this? Like, I watch this movie now and I'm just like, how the fuck do you come up with that? Where did your train of thought go where you thought of that joke? Because a lot of the jokes, to this movie's credit, are visual.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like when he accidentally starts lighting shit on fire in Vincent Ludwig's office, and then he escapes through the window and holds on to the penis statue.
Yeah.
It's like, how the...
Well, and just the row of statues, too. Again, that's another example. Like, they had to build that.
You know, this is a point that you brought up that you wanted to talk about, but I'll just introduce it and you can kind of talk about it, which is like, this movie is kind of like a meeting point for our taste in movies. What do you mean by that?
Well, I'm sure Nice Dude fans know that you and I love like dumb comedies. That just goes without saying. But you and I also off camera and off mic and any of that stuff have kind of different tastes sometimes. I mean, we obviously have very similar tastes in a lot of ways. That's why you and I work together. Mm-hmm. But also like, you know, we've had full ass conversations about what we get out of art and what we look for in art. And so typically what it comes down to is I like stuff that's a little more... Sometimes I'm more open to like darker stuff. Sometimes I like more existential stuff. Sometimes I like heavy stuff. Not all the time, but you know, I'm much more open, and like a lot of my favorite stuff is like that. And then for you, it's not like you don't like it, but you just need to be in a certain headspace. You can't just put it on a lot of the time.
Okay. I think I'll give an example. I like stuff that is like, I can watch like for instance, I love Martin Scorsese's movies, right? I love Martin Scorsese movies. Martin Scorsese movies, all of them are about, you know, almost all of them are about, you know, how our society's crumbling, about toxic masculinity, all that shit. He talks about really dark topics and dark themes. But the reason I can rewatch them a lot is because they're protected by genre, you know? And so I can still feel those things and think about those things, but I feel like there's this protection. And sometimes, like, when a movie or TV show feels way too raw, like, I get so uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, BoJack. Even though BoJack, you could say, is protected by genre. It's an animated show that has animals as characters mixed with humans, right? But when it gets to dark shit, it talks about things in such a fucking real way. Like, in Martin Scorsese movies, I can be like, well, I'm not a gangster. You know what I mean? But like in BoJack, I'm just like, well, I live in LA and I've had those thoughts. Oh my God, fuck. You know what I mean? So that's an example. I just wanted to give some context so people have like an understanding of what you're talking about.
Yeah. And, you know, I think you and I have had little debates about it, not in like a hostile way at all, not in like you're watching things wrong or any listeners, you know, we're not going to dictate what people should look for, but it's very, you know, subjective. It's very personal and it's about preference. And so, but point is though, you and I do come together when it comes to like just complete nonsensical, like fuck it all comedy movies, such as this one. But we also love the movie Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping.
There's a lot example. That's a great example. That's like
which I mean, if anyone hasn't seen that movie, I do recommend it because that movie kind of, I'm not saying it's totally unheard of, but there's a lot of people that haven't seen that movie, and I wish more people saw it.
That's a great example of a modern day version of this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's satire. The characters in the movies don't think they're in a comedy. They think they're in a legit, like, pop star music documentary. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. And, like, I guess really to wrap up my point, though, is that, like, my perspective when it comes to watching, you know, the BoJack Horsemans or, like, the dark shit or whatever, is for me, it's like life is also very, like you said, you've had thoughts like that before, like you talked about, and I like feeling heard, and I like feeling like, when that sort of thing is normalized, it kind of makes the not so normal. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate you being there for like pushing me to watch certain stuff like that though. Because I don't put it on for fun.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And so I guess really on the complete opposite end though, life is also really fucking stupid and absurd and ridiculous and really funny. And I like when comedy movies can fully lean into that as well.
Sure.
You know?
No. You're completely right. This is definitely that like middle ground for both of us where like, sure, we have different tastes, but I think sometimes I like another version of like how our movie tastes can be different sometimes off camera is that you're not as much of a cinephile as I am. And I think sometimes I really want to like either show you a movie that is like on the, you know, 100 greatest of all time that I can't believe you haven't seen this movie, or I just want to watch a movie with you that I'm like, oh, I've been wanting to watch this for a while. And I think sometimes it's hard for you to like, it's hard for me to get you to watch a movie. But I know if you were in LA and if tomorrow I'm like, Chris, let's watch Daddy's Home 2, you'd like watch it. You'd be immediately down. You'd be so down. Like, if I asked you to watch Challengers, it'd be like, I don't know about right now. I'm kind of hungry. But Daddy's Home 2, you'd be like, fuck dinner. I'm watching it tonight.
Because I don't feel like there's anything being asked of me to watch Daddy's Home.
Sure. But I think that's the value of these kind of movies too, is that there's so much less pressure too. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't, I can just like, it's the cliche of I can turn my brain off, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so do you want to move on to write-ins?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'll summarize my thoughts real quick too. Same thing, incredibly fond of this movie. Also really appreciative of, in a weird, I know it sounds weird to say like our reaction to it because all we did is sit down and watch it on camera and everything, but there is something, very special to us in terms of what it did in building our audience and people who like watching me and Altaf shoot the shit. It really did give us a feeling of that. I know Spaceballs was kind of the OG for that, but Naked Gun also really hammered it in for us that this is something that you and I could do as a job and like be professional internet personalities, whatever you want to call it. Naked Gun is very near and dear to us. So to anyone that watched that video and supported it or gave us any love in the comments or is still following us or whatever it is, thank you. And thank you for being along for this journey.
We asked you guys how this movie changed you. Chris always puts a prompt up on Instagram, on our YouTube community page, on our Patreon, asking you how blank movie changed you. And if you follow us in any of those platforms, you can see that. You can email us in at moviesthatchangedus@gmail.com. I'm going to say that again, moviesthatchangedus@gmail.com.
Yeah, so just be on the loop on our social media and on our YouTube channel. We put it somewhere.
100%. Anywhere you can find us, we put it there. So Christopher Venti wrote in, "Greetings, I'm a big fan of your work. Thank you for having engaging discussions about all of my favorite movies." Thank you, Christopher.
Yeah, thank you. You're very welcome.
I first saw Naked Gun when I was far too young to get the true meaning behind most of the jokes. I took nice beaver to mean that he was definitely complimenting her stuffed beaver. Outside of the blue nature of the humor, Naked Gun changed me by becoming the cornerstone of my overall sense of humor. There's almost nothing in this world that has made me laugh as hard as Leslie Nielsen's deadpan delivery of a precisely timed one-liner in Naked Gun and all of his performances. My early exposures to movies like Naked Gun and Airplane gave me a desire to look for the one-liner in my everyday interactions. That's pretty funny. This ability to look at the light side of life has gotten me through challenging times, making my own doctors laugh when telling me about the grape-sized tumor on my pituitary gland, grieving the loss of my father, or finding the lighter side of divorce and difficult life changes. Finding humor in the hard times makes the most challenging life events feel like what they are, a moment in time that will pass and fade as we move forward. Also knowing that if Frank can sing like that in front of a baseball stadium of hostile fans, I can sing karaoke in front of a bar of drunks. Stay nice, dudes. I know.
Thank you so much for that, Christopher.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking props to you, man, for, pursuing through life with such a good attitude. I think all of us need to hear that.
Going through stuff that is obviously hard, but I can only imagine,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he nailed it. From what he said, it's just like, the world's pretty awful right now, man. And, you open your phone and you feel like everything's burning down to the ground. Sometimes watching a movie like this can make things feel a little bit more normal, just because you can remind yourself that you can find the silliness in everything, Yeah. So it's, I'm appreciative of a fan like Christopher writing us in and sharing his story and kind of basically summarizing what we love about these kind of movies so well.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Chris. Thank you. Or Christopher. I don't know. I called you Chris because I'm Christopher and I prefer to call myself Chris. So whatever you prefer.
He just replies with unsubscribed.
Yeah, unsubscribe. You called me Chris.
Yeah, you've said this many times before, but it is always kind of a pleasant surprise when people do write in.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, wow, you took time out of your day to write this like meaningful email about what this movie means to you.
Well, yeah, especially opening up the way people do. Christopher is a great example of this, and we get a lot of write-ins of people sometimes writing their whole life stories, and it's really cool that we can all kind of share this together and celebrate it in the way it connects to us and moves us through life.
It's what this podcast, we really want it to be, a place where we can kind of learn more about ourselves through movies.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you so much to our patrons for supporting us again and again. We really appreciate it. Last but not least, stay nice, dudes.
Booyah.